Shalom ben Bluma.
Let me write it down.
Thank you.
Say it again.
Yes, Yehoshua Shalom.
Yeshua.
Shalom ben Bluma.
Shalom.
Ben, son of Bluma.
Ben, I didn't hear that.
Bluma.
Bluma, okay.
Bluma. Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing about comas. Doctors do induce comas
Yeah.
they find it, they learn more about what's going on. It happened to my brother, and it happened to my neighbors.
Yeah. This one is
So-
not induced. Originally they were right after the accident because there was damage to the skull and vertebrae, lungs. I mean, you name it. Because the poor guy really got beat up. Yeah, he wasn't even going fast. So it was someone had stolen a car, had rammed him from behind, drove him into another parked car, and the whole car accordioned on him, and then the guy got out and ran. So it's really been a.
Did they catch the guy?
I don't think they caught the guy. I don't know if it make a difference. Actually, I know it wasn't intentional. It was just.
You would want to catch him because he could do it again.
Stealing the
Yeah.
car was intentional.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is a little bit different format. What I'd like to do is go through Megillat Esther, certain parts of it. We are, I think for the most part, familiar with the Megillah story. I want to, though, gain first of all, a historical perspective, and then also share with you some of the insights of the Vilna Gaon, the Gaon of Vilna, who explains that in addition to the historical story events that took place, this also serves as a parable for the very sojourn that souls go through in this world, the trek, the sojourn of humanity as we're making our way through history. So let's just begin with source number one, which is Rabbi Becher from Gateway to Judaism. This is one of those books that people who are involved in a conversion process need to study. And it's one of those books that if every Jew would study it, we'd all be in much better shape. It wasn't limited to just those involved in a conversion process. The Purim story begins about 900 years after the Exodus from Egypt. The Jews have been living in Israel continuously since they first entered it with Joshua. For 410 years, King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem had been the focal point of the Jewish spiritual and national life in Israel. Just to connect it for a moment to a lot of the misinformation that goes on in the world today, the only nation, the only people who ever had a sovereign state in Israel, with Jerusalem and Israel as their focal point, as opposed to the Romans who controlled Israel, but of course they were based in Rome, and the Turks, right? But they were based in, I would imagine, Istanbul, wherever they were based, right? The only ones, and from 48 to 67, when Jordan was there, they're based in Amman. The only people, the only nation who ever had a sovereign state in Israel, with Israel and Jerusalem as the capital, is us. Okay, us. The first major tragedy the Jewish people of this era experienced was the division of the country into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judea. This was a split that took place after the death of Shlomo Solomon, when his son Rechavam took over. The northern kingdom was populated by 10 of the 12 tribes. It was eventually invaded by the Assyrians under Sennacherib, who exiled the Jews. Sennacherib's policy of forced exile and assimilation directly caused the loss of the 10 tribes to the Jewish people. And over time, we've had different people who have surfaced. We have the Ethiopians, who have maintained who maintained many of the Torah laws, but not the rabbinic laws, which were many established at other points. Less than 100 years later, the Jews were dealt another terrible blow. This time the Babylonians, under Nebuchadnezzar, invaded Israel, destroyed the temple, and exiled almost all of the remaining tribes, Judah, Benjamin, priests, and Levites, to Babylon, modern-day Iraq. 2 weeks by camel, 7 minutes by scud. Okay, he has a bit of a sense of humor. Jeremiah the prophet had warned that there would be destruction and exile, but he also predicted that the Jews would return to Israel and rebuild the temple and their homeland. Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu even put a date on the return, declaring the temple would be rebuilt 70 years after its destruction. Nevertheless, there were many who did not believe that they would ever return to Israel, and felt that this exile signified the end of the special relationship between God and the Jewish people. The Jews quickly became acclimated to the conditions of the exile and built a well-organized Jewish community in Babylon and neighboring Persia. So this is taking place towards the end of the 70-year exile. But we, as he writes, were not so confident that this exile would ever end. This was also coming about at the time of the cessation of prophecy. And many people understandably took that as a sign that we were being sent adrift. Let us then now begin the Megillat Esther. In the Chumashim that you have, on page 1252 is where we have the Megillah. And again, I want to give a historical perspective, and I also want to share with you some of the insights of the Vilna Gaon on this remez, on this whole deeper level understanding of what this represents. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, and it came to pass in the days of Achashverosh, who? Achashverosh, he was Achashverosh, Hamalech meHodu v'ad Kush, who ruled from Hodu until Kush, Sheva v'esrumimeyah, Medina, 127 Medina, or actually 720 and 100 states, provinces. B'yamim hahem, in those days, Keshevet Melech Achashverosh, when the king was settled al kisei malchuto, on the throne of his kingdom, Asher b'Shushan Abira, which was in Shushan Abira, b'Shnat Shalosh l'Malcho, on the 3rd year of his reign, Asa Mishteh, he made a party, l'chol sarava vadav, for all of his servants, all of his officers and servants, Chel in the armies of Paras and Madai, apart from him. Why did he make this party on the 3rd year of his reign? You'd think, I've ascended, now's the time for me to celebrate, to show my grandeur, to impress everyone.
Maybe
The Gemara.
maybe he wanted to. He needed some time to assure himself that he was going to stay.
Okay, that's a possibility, right? That's a possibility. The Gemara explains.
It was the end of the 7 years.
The Gemara explains that he calculated the end of the 70 years. There was a previous king, Belshazzar, who miscalculated the end of the 70 years and made a big party to celebrate and came out wearing the garments of the Kohen Gadol, thinking that now we could do this with impunity because of the 70 years have passed and the Jews have not been redeemed. It means God has rejected the Jewish people, and therefore there's no longer any holiness, any concern when it comes to these garments. Achashverosh said he miscalculated. I will calculate correctly. The famous to see the handwriting on the wall, that took place at the party of Belshazzar, where the writing said, Mana mana taka leparas, I believe. The vessels you have taken, and you will be destroyed. Belshazzar died that night. Achashverosh waited 3 years until his calculation was that the 70 years had ended. And then what did he do? Pasuk Daled, verse 4. Baroto et osher kavod malchuto vet yikar teferet gedulato. When he showed the wealth and the honor of his kingdom and the glory of the exaltedness of his greatness. And these are terms that are used by the garments of the high priest, of the Kohen Gadol. He too came out wearing these garments. If you look at verse 6, Pasuk Vav, there's a big letter Chet, Chor, Karpasu Techelet, where we're discussing all the grandeur, page 1252, all the grandeur of this party. The big letter Chet. Well, what is the numerical value of Chet? 8. How many garments did a regular Kohen wear? 4. How many garments did the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, wear? 8. This is another allusion to the 8 garments that he was wearing. Vashkot, Pasuk Zayin, Pasuk 7. Vashkot, B'chlei Zahav, and the drinks were served in golden goblets. And here, the Baal Koreh changes the tune from the Megillat Esther tune that I've been using, and he changes it to the haunting lament of Eicha, of the book that we read, Lamentations, that we read on Tisha B'Av. Vashkot, B'chlei Zahav, V'chelim, Mikelim Shonim. And the vessels were from different vessels. The English says no 2 goblets were alike. But these were the vessels of the temple that were now being used. Vashtia Kedat, verse 8. And the drinking was according to the law. Ein ones, no one was forced. Kichein Yisad Hamelech, because that is what the king had established. Al Kol Rav Beso, ordered all the officers of his house, Lasot Kirtzoni Shvish, to do according to the will of each and every person. So no one should be forced. That's the storyline. That is the historical perspective of where we're at. And with that, we can understand one of the many, many unique characteristics of the book of Esther. Again, historically, this is taking place at the end of the Golus. Pretty soon, we will start the rebuilding of the Second Temple. He was off by about, I think, 9 years. He was off by. Okay? But we felt adrift. As Rebecca wrote, many people thought it had ended. We thought it had ended. Right? Realize the great sin was that we went to the party and we enjoyed, we enjoyed this party. Imagine a Jew going to a party that is celebrating the end of Judaism and saying, great party, good food, nice cups, good drinks. That is how detached so many of us were. One of the unique characteristics of Megillat Esther is that God's name never appears explicitly in Megillat Esther. But when it says HaMelech, the king, as opposed to HaMelech Achashverosh, as opposed to King Achashverosh, that is referring to God. But why doesn't it just say God's name? Because we're entering into a period of history. Again, prophecy is coming to an end. There's not going to be these overt miracles, the splitting of the sea, the plagues, the water from a rock, the man from the heavens. But we need to know that we needed to know then, and we need to know today, that God is as with us now as he was then, but in a covert, in a behind the scenes approach, relationship, dealing. Now, the Vilna Gaon explains that again, in addition to this historical event that took place, this is all going on a much deeper level. Achashverosh, he says, refers to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination. Now the Gemara says certain things about Vayihi bimei Achashverosh. I'm going back to the first pasuk, the first verse. And it was in the days of Achashverosh, Rabbi Yochanan, we have it both in Hebrew and in English by source number 3. Rabbi Yochanan says, why was he called Achashverosh? Kol shezochro, whoever would mention him, Omer would say, Ach l'rosho, Achashverosh, Ach to my head, Oy ve'zmir, Ach l'rosho. The Vilna Gaon explains, that is the Yetzer Hara, meaning, what happens? We get tempted to do something, we go ahead and we do it, and what do we say afterwards? Ach l'rosho. What was I thinking? Why did I do that? Why was that so difficult for me to overcome? Rabbi Chanina says, Shakol nasu rashin biyamav. Achashverosh, Rash means poor. Everyone became impoverished in his days. Meaning, the Vilna Gaon explains, once again, the Yetzer Hara says, take care of this, spend on this, you need this, well, they have that, how can't you have that? Didn't you see their Facebook? Didn't you see what they're doing? Didn't you see where they've gone? You've got to do the same. Right? And we have all of this pressure to keep up and to do, and we end up often going beyond our means, which results once again in the Ach l'rosho, the Oy, what was I thinking? Let's skip down in the Hebrew. In English I have a 7. In the Hebrew, it's there in that same paragraph. The second line from the bottom in the Hebrew paragraph in number 3, and in the English under number 3, it's the second paragraph. So in the Hebrew over here, it's the second line from the bottom. In the English, it's the second paragraph. Ha-molech. Ha-molech, which means he assumed that, I'm sorry, there are some other extras. That's the wrong side. These are one side. Please send some more down over here. I apologize. Good. Everybody else has? Good. Ha-molech, that he ruled, it means he assumed the position. Achashverosh, right, on another more historical aspect, was not of royal descent. He married Vashti. Vashti was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. She was almost his legitimacy on the throne. That's why when she refused, and we'll soon see how she refuses, when she refuses, that's why it was such a conundrum for Achashverosh. What should he do? To depose of her, then who is he? But to maintain her as the queen when she has so publicly humiliated him, once again, who is he? Right? Ha-molech, he assumed the role. Amar Rav explains, Shemalach me'atzmo, he raised himself to the throne. Amri la l'shevach, some say that it is a praise to him. For Amri la l'ganai, and others say that this was to his degradation. Amri la l'shevach, there are those that say that it's a shevach, it's a praise. T'lo havi inish t'chashav l'malka kavatei. There is no one who was important to be the king as he. The Vilna Gaon explains this Yetzer Hara, there's a lot of shevach, there's a lot of praise involved, a lot of good involved. What's the good? Well, that's the whole purpose of life. The whole purpose of our souls being sent down into this world is to confront challenges, overcome those challenges, and become greater human beings, become greater servants of God. Therefore, this Yetzer Hara, he has a very, very important role to play. For Amilo L'Ganai, and the others say that it was his degradation. Tu avichazi l'malchuta, umamoni yateruhu diyahiv v'kam. He doesn't deserve to have such an important place in this world. Why do we give him such importance in this world? Because he gives money. Achashverosh, he bought his way in. This Yetzer Hara tempts us with, if you do this, you'll make money, you'll be good, you'll be comfortable. And that's how he rises to power. And he makes, going back to the Psukim now, he ruled from Hodu va'ad Kush. What does Hod mean?
India?
Well, yes. But Hod in modern Hebrew means like glory. Right? Glow. He rules Mehodu va'ad Kush. Kush means darkened. Right? This Yetzer Hara rules from the time that we are aglow just as we enter the world until we are darkened with age. Sheva, the Esrim, Umeya, Medina. The end of verse 1. 7 and 20 and 100. The Vilna Gaon explains the first 7 years, we're carefree. Who thinks about that? Then we have 20 years, our teenage years. I don't have to worry. And once we get into certain habits, practices, he's got us then for 100 years. And then the king sat al Kisei Malchuto, which was in Shushan Abira, and in the 3rd year he made a mishteh. He makes a party. This party went on for 180 days. Vilna Gaon explains the whole year is a party. You take off the time that we are sleeping, and the time that we have our holidays, and right, and the rest of the time it's the Olam Hazeh party that he makes for us. Vashkot, let's go to verse 7 now. Vashkot b'chlei zahav, right? And they were drinking from golden goblets. We said this is a reference to that of the temple. V'yein malchut rav, and tremendous amount of wine, kiyad melech, right? According to the ability of the king. Vashtia kedat ein ones. Take a look at the Gemara now. Gemara, source number 4. What the Gemara says about this. Ein ones. None was compelled. Everyone was given to drink wine from his own country. Everyone, right? Ein ones. No one was forced. The Vilna Gaon explains the Yetzer Hara doesn't force anybody. But what happens?
It seduces people.
Temptations are placed in front of us. Ein ones. No one's forced. Lasot kirtzon ish v'ish, the pasuk said, to do the will of each and every person. Amar Rava says, Lasot kirtzon Mordechai v'Haman, to do like the will of an ish, of a person or a person, meaning Mordechai and Haman. On the simple level, Mordechai was an important officer. Haman was an important officer. They were in charge of this Seudah. Mordechai made sure everything was kosher and tried to get the Jews not to come. Haman was there doing the Haman things. Ish, the Ish, man and man, that's Mordechai. As we find, it says Ish Yehudi. Mordechai is referred to as an Ish. Haman is an Ish. Ish Tsar Va'oyev. But on the deeper level, the Vilna Gaon explains, in Olam Hazeh, in this world, Ein Ones. No one is forced. La'asot kirtzon. We do whatever you want to do. Ish v'ish. We have a choice. You want to become a Mordechai in life? You want to take the gift of life that's given to you, the years that's given to you, and become a Mordechai? Ein Ones. No one's forced. You can become a tremendous tzaddik. V'ish. And if you want to become a Haman, Ein Ones. No one is forced in this world. Pasuk Tet, verse 9. Gam Vashti Amalka Asta Mishtei Nashim Beit Hamalchut Asher Lemelech Achashverosh. Vashti, the Vilna Gaon, Vashti the queen, also made a party for the women in the royal house there, which belonged to Achashverosh. Vashti, the Vilna Gaon says on this deeper remez level, Vashti represents the guf, the body, that is completely married to, in cahoots, with the Yetzer Hara. Who is Vashti married to? Achashverosh. And she's right there enjoying the party, adding to the party. Then what happens? Pasuk Yud, verse 10. On the seventh day, when the king's heart was good with wine, he said to his officers, Pasuk Yud Aleph, verse 11, Lavi et Vashti Malka lifnei hamelech, to bring Vashti the queen before the king. Not King Achashverosh, before the king. Biketer Malchut, meaning, at a certain point, the party's over. And then what happens? The Melech, God, summons that guf, that individual, and says it's time to come before the king with Keter Malchut, with the crown of your royalty, meaning with that which you have accomplished in your life. That is, we use the term your crowning achievements. Don't we use that term? Right? With who you are, with what you are, with what you have accomplished. Now, the Gemara tells us that he wanted her to come naked. Now, Achashverosh wants her to come naked. And that's the way of the Yetzer Hara. It seduces, 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 and then it humiliates you. Right? Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. You listen to me. The Gemara says, I didn't have it over here. Vatme'ein hamalka Vashti, Malka, the queen, Vashti, refused to follow the Devar HaMelech. The Gemara says, the Vilna Gaon explains, at a certain point, the person is so enmeshed in their mistakes that they refuse till the very last minute. The Gemara says, why does she refuse? The Gemara says, well, one explanation is that she had sara'at. She had leprosy. In other words, that the Vilna Gaon says every misstep, every sin causes tzara'at, causes a leprosy on the soul. Right? In this world, it's all covered over. Then it's being revealed. She was embarrassed to come because she realized what she had done. Another opinion says that she had a tail. All of a sudden, she had a tail.
She had a tail?
Had a tail. Right? Now, what does a tail represent?
An animal.
An animal. A lizard. Whatever it might be. An animal. Meaning that she had lived her life completely married to that Yetzer Hara, always following the animalistic urges, and therefore she was embarrassed to come before the king. Now, on the pshat level, let's go back to just a simple storyline. Achashverosh wants Vashti to come, right? This is his claim to the throne, his legitimacy. And he wants to show, in a very Ralph Cramden way, right, who's the king of
Brooklyn.
Of the castle. No other honeymooner fans over here? Who's the king of the castle? Look at this nuance. Verse 11. Lavi et Vashti hamalka, to bring Vashti, the queen, before the king. What does verse 12 say? Vatma'ain hamalka Vashti. But Queen Vashti refused. Notice a nuanced change over here. Who did he want to bring? Vashti,
The queen.
Hamalka. Who refused? Hamalka, Vashti. He wanted to bring Vashti. Who is she? She's Vashti. And she happens to be the queen. Right? Meaning she's Vashti. And she's married to me, so that makes her the queen. She said, excuse me, sir. I'm not Vashti, the queen. I am Queen Vashti. That's why she refused. Hamalka Vashti. I'm Hamalka. I've got the royal blood running through my veins. You do not. I am the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. You grew up as a commoner. Don't you call me Vashti. I am Hamalka.
Didn't he like work in a stable or something?
There is a medrash that she sent him a message that the stable boy in my grandfather's kingdom could hold his beverages better than you can. Right, there's that stable boy reference. Vayiktov hamelech ma'od, and the king was furious. V'chamato ba'aravo, and his anger burned inside of him. Meaning, he didn't want to publicize his humiliation. Right? So therefore, he contained it. Right? And the king then calls the Chachamim to know what should he do. Pasuk Tet Zayin, verse 16. Vayomer Mimuchan Lifnei HaMelech Vasarim. Mimuchan speaks in front of the king and the officer, and he says, she hasn't just rebelled against you, but against a whole kingdom. Because everyone will say that when the word goes out, verse 17, that she refused to come, then no one's going to listen to their husbands. It's going to be a tremendous, tremendous embarrassment. Memuchan, the Gemara says Memuchan is Haman. On the Vilna Gaon's Remez level, who does Haman represent? Haman is the Satan himself. Okay? He is that which is in charge of directing us. Now again, according to Judaism, the Satan is a servant of God. Right? I like to call him the personal trainer. Right? He pushes us and pushes us and pushes us. The hope being that we push back. Right? Famous teaching that I heard, I'm pretty sure it was from Rav Hillel Zaks, that when Yaakov wrestled with the angel, right, back in Bereshit. So who was this angel? He was the Sar, the officer of Esav. This was the Yetzer Hara. So this was the Satan himself, so to speak. So if that's the case, so how did he's a messenger of God, he's doing God's will. How could it be that Yaakov could defeat him in that struggle? It must be that his mission is to struggle with us and then fail, and then lose. The problem is we toss in the towel too early. Right? That's the problem. We toss in the towel a little bit too early. Yeah. I saw an incredible parable to this that actually took place that I watched on the plane. I watched this documentary about this woman who worked in England for their equivalent of the NSA. And she was the whistleblower who publicized that there were no real weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They were trying to keep that quiet in order to go out to war. Right? And she copied these internal memos and she spread them out, and she was being tried for treason. And in the end, the prosecution dropped its case. But the prosecution sat quietly until she would decide if she would plead guilty or non-guilty. If she would have pled guilty, then she would have gone to prison for who knows how many decades, even though they did not have a case. But they were just sitting back waiting to see. Once she pled not guilty, then they vacated their whole case. I thought of this Yetzer Hara. Right? You know, had she blinked early, prison for decades. The Yetzer Hara pushes, and says, give in. Ultimately, though, he gives in. If we stick around long enough. Like Yaakov, he was able to persevere. What did they decide needed to be done? We need to find a new queen. Right? That's the Purim story that we're all familiar with. Who became this new queen? Esther. The Vilna Gaon on this remez level, on this deeper hint, somewhat Kabbalistic level. Who does Esther represent? The guf, the body, that's actually married to, we skipped something, sorry. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan Habira. There was a man, a Yehudi, in Shushan Habira. Ushmo, and his name was Mordechai ben Yareh ben Shimon ben Kish, Ish Yehudi. Right? That's what we have over here in chapter 2, verse 5. Right? Esther was married to Mordechai. What does Esther represent? What does Mordechai represent? The Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination. So what was Esther now? Esther is married to Mordechai, but living in the palace of Achashverosh. What is the lot? What is the sojourn that a human being is put into? We're meant to be married to the Yetzer Tov, even as we live in the palace of Achashverosh, even as we live in Olam Hazeh, in this world, which is, Olam Hazeh, we say, is Domeh L'choshech, is compared to darkness because we don't see things clearly, we confuse good for bad, bad for good. That is the lot, that is the mission that is given to us. That as we live in the palace of Achashverosh, so there need to be this new being that would come into the world, a new stage of humanity. The new stage of humanity would be that we would be connected to that Yetzer Tov, married to that Yetzer Tov, to be an Esther, a Guf that's married to Mordechai, even as we live in the palace of Achashverosh, even as we live in this world with all of its temptations. This is this new being that came about. Ultimately, what happens? Chapter 3, verse 1 on page 1254, towards the very bottom. Achar hadvarim ha'ele gidal hamelech Achashverosh es Haman ben Amdasa hagagi vayinaseyu. After these things, King Achashverosh promoted Haman, the son of Hamdata v'Agagi, vayinaseyu, and advanced him. What happens then? So we have a teaching, Kol hagadol mechavero yitzro gadol v'kitrugo gadol. The greater a person is,
the greater the Yetzer Hara.
the greater the Yetzer Hara becomes. Why would that be the case? I would think the greater a person becomes, the less the Yetzer Hara, the less the inclination to do bad is.
It's a challenge for the Yetzer Hara.
I'm sorry?
It's a bigger challenge for the Yetzer Hara to drag you down.
But why? But why does the Yetzer Hara have to get stronger then?
Could the ability of the other person, the one who is the Yetzer Hara, have an effect on the Yetzer Tov, because the Yetzer Hara has to work harder now. Because he has to work harder.
But what I'm asking is this. What I'm asking is, if I become holier, so then all of these temptations should subside.
No, they don't, though. They just get
Everything needs
worse.
to be in balance.
Everything needs to be in balance. So the whole purpose of life is to have the challenges that we have. So therefore, as a person gets greater, the challenges also have to get greater. Otherwise, the person is not being challenged. And the whole purpose of our life is to have these challenges that enable us to become greater. If there's no, we know in a physical sense, right? If I go to work out and I go to the gym and I take this back and I do, oh, pretty good, huh? Hey, look at that guy. That's one buff rabbi, isn't it? Right? It's not going to work. Why isn't it going to work? There's no resistance. If there's no resistance, there's no growth. In our spiritual life, in our emotional life also, if there's no resistance, then there's no growth. So a person becomes greater. What needs to happen? Gidal hamelech Achashverosh et Haman. Haman also needed to be strengthened, needed to be raised up in order to give us those challenges.
A worthy opponent.
Sorry?
Worthy opponent.
A worthy opponent. That's exactly right. Right? This Yetzer Hara, this Satan, this Haman tries to wipe out the Jewish people. Right? That we're not connected. Hey, we enjoyed Achashverosh's party. Can you imagine? Let's put it into our world, into our terms.
We enjoyed
The
party.
Nazis make a party to celebrate their great accomplishments of ridding the world of so many of those Untermenschen, those lower human beings that they describe the Jews as being. And a Jew goes to the party and has a good time. There was good drinks, good food, nice people. I had a good time. Could we imagine such a thing? This was the point that many of us had gotten to, that we enjoyed Achashverosh's party again with the chet and the tiferet and the garments and the vessels. So this was bringing us to the brink of destruction.
Doesn't
Right?
it happen though in the news? You read things like that, especially today. Students there are students
Yeah,
who are,
there
who
are,
are
there are many.
drawn to
Yeah.
all these things.
Yes, yes, yes.
Or other people.
Yes, yes. Ultimately, we know that the plan fails. Esther, right, through her allegiance to Mordechai, remember, Achashverosh never knew what her background was, right? So it was only, Achashverosh never knew who her background was. It was only that whole, her allegiance to Mordechai, that Mordechai had told her not to tell. Even though it seemed that telling would be great for the Jews, Mordechai had told her not to tell. She did not tell. And then it was only at that second party that trying to destroy me, trying to destroy my people. Mi hu zeh ve'ezeh hu. Who is that? Ish tsar v'oyev Haman hara hazeh. That leads to Haman's downfall and the redemption, the saving of the Jewish people. And then a few years later, we had the building of the second Beis Hamikdash, the building of the second temple as we returned. One last thing that I want to show you. So this is how the Vilna Gaon operates at a whole different remez level of this beautiful story that we love reading and making our noise by Haman, but seeing this whole different level of what